Imagine stepping into a dimly lit room, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of candle wax. Laughter erupts as men, adorned in satin and lace, toast to freedom in a world that denies their very existence. Imagine the flick of a fan, a painted cheek turning in candlelight, the echo of a lover's name whispered in a room that must forget it by morning. This is where fantasy becomes protest and intimacy becomes a revolution. Welcome to the Molly House, a sanctuary hidden in the shadows of 18th century London, where the forbidden thrived behind locked doors. In an era where love between men was punishable by death, these clandestine establishments were acts of rebellion. Here, men discarded the rigid expectations of Georgian society, embracing femininity, affection, and even mock marriages. Yet every night carried the specter of danger, a wrong word, a traitorous glance, and the sanctuary could become a death trap. This episode unveils the secret world of Molly houses, their origins, the audacious lives they sheltered, and the legacy they forged. From coded slang to underground drag balls, these spaces were the beating heart of a resistance that refused to be silenced. 18th century London. London in the 1700s was a city of stark contrasts. Grand Georgian townhouses stood alongside squalid slums, and the clatter of horse-drawn carriages mingled with the cries of street vendors hawking their wares. Yet beneath this vibrant surface lurked a society governed by draconian moral codes. The Buggery Act of 1533, still in force, rendered homosexual acts a capital offense, punishable by public hanging. The law cast a long shadow, turning desire into a crime and intimacy into a death sentence. Public executions at Tyburn were grim theater, drawing jeering crowds who reveled in the spectacle of the condemned. Newspapers sensationalized their trials, branding them as moral contagions. Yet, paradoxically, this very repression birthed a hidden subculture. In the labyrinthine alleys of Holborn and the Warren-like courts of Moorfields, queer men sought fleeting moments of connection. Taverns, parks, and public baths became fraught meeting grounds, where a lingering touch or a whispered word could mean salvation or ruin. But how does one find love when every glance is a gamble? Where does one turn when society declares you monstrous? The answer lay in the shadows, where necessity bred ingenuity. You might wonder, how did they find each other in this tangled, dangerous city? It started with a glance, a shared risk, and a silent yes. Enter the Molly houses, secret, defiant spaces where men could shed their fear, if only for a night. The birth of Molly houses. Persecution demands invention. For queer men in 18th century London, survival meant carving out spaces where they could exist not as criminals, but as themselves. Thus, the Molly House was born, part tavern, part theater, part sacred refuge. Within their walls, patrons adopted flamboyant aliases like Princess Seraphina and Lady Pickington, and donned gowns, wigs, and rouge, transforming into the women society forbade them to be. Rituals were plenty, mock weddings complete with veils and vows, lying-in ceremonies where men birthed wooden dolls, and raucous dances that mocked the rigid gender roles of the time. Language, too, became a shield. A secret code evolved, allowing Mollies to communicate under the radar. Martha might signal a kindred spirit. To trade meant to seek a lover. This linguistic web wove a fragile safety net, binding the community together even as the noose tightened outside. Yet visibility came at a cost. As Molly houses grew bolder, so did their enemies. Moral reformers, clergy, and constables alike railed against these dens, setting the stage for brutal crackdowns. The very existence of Molly houses was an affront to the establishment, and the establishment would not tolerate defiance for long. Inside the Molly house, step across the threshold and the world outside dissolves. The Molly house is a realm of inverted norms, where candlelight gilds the faces of men in silk and lace, where the clink of gin glasses harmonizes with bawdy ballads. At the center of it all might stand a mother, a matriarchal figure, often a charismatic man who presides over the revelry. A mock wedding unfolds in one corner, the bride swathed in stolen finery, while in another, a group collapses into laughter over a lewd pun. In a world that denies them dignity, these men craft their own. The mock birth, the exaggerated curtsy, the adoption of feminine roles, all are acts of reclamation. For a few hours, they're not outcasts but celebrated, even worshipped. Yet the merriment is laced with tension. A sudden knock, a stranger's probing gaze, any misstep could spell disaster. Some patrons keep knives tucked in their garters. Others memorize escape routes through back alleys. The Molly House is both sanctuary and battleground, a fleeting paradise where joy and terror dance hand in hand. Can you hear it? The door creaks, the song stops mid-note. A glass tips, everyone freezes. In this world, a laugh too loud can be a death sentence. And yet, they laugh. Persecution and raids. The backlash was inevitable. By the early 1700s, moral crusaders like the Society for the Reformation of Manners had made Molly houses their prime target. Informants infiltrated their ranks, luring men into compromising situations before betraying them to authorities. Raids became spectacles, doors smashed open, patrons dragged into the street half-dressed, their names splashed across scandal sheets. Can you imagine risking everything just to hold someone's hand, to whisper a secret, to wear the wrong clothes? The 1726 raid on Mother Clapp's Molly House marked a turning point. Over 40 men were arrested, subjected to humiliating public examinations, and in some cases hanged. What must it have felt like to see your name in the papers, your private life dissected for the world to jeer at? Margaret Clapp herself, a rare female ally, was pilloried and pelted with refuse, her establishment reduced to rubble as a warning. Yet the crackdowns revealed a paradox. The more violently the state pursued Mollies, the more resilient the subculture became. Why? Because being seen, even for a night, was worth everything. Closed houses reopened under new names. Coded language grew more intricate. Some men, facing execution, met their fate with stunning defiance, like John Cooper, who went to the gallows in a dress, refusing to renounce his identity even in death. More than a century before Oscar Wilde's infamous trial, these men were already facing courts and crowds with unshakable defiance. Notable figures and cases. The history of Molly houses is etched with the names of individuals whose courage defied an era of brutality. Among them, Princess Seraphina stands as a luminous figure. Often cited as one of London's earliest documented drag queens, Seraphina was a flamboyant regular at Molly houses, known for her lavish gowns, razor-sharp wit, and audacious public appearances. She commanded attention, striding through London's streets with a defiance that blurred the line between performance and protest. Imagine the audacity, walking through hostile streets in heels and silk, daring the world to look away first. Then there was Gabriel Lawrence, a patron of Mother Clapp's Molly House, whose 1726 trial became a spectacle of state-sanctioned cruelty. Arrested in a raid orchestrated by informants, Lawrence was subjected to a humiliating public trial where his private life was dissected as evidence of depravity. His execution, a public hanging at Tyburn, was meant to serve as a warning. Instead, it revealed the hypocrisy of a society that criminalized love while turning death into entertainment. Equally significant was Margaret Clapp, the namesake of the infamous Molly House. Unlike the caricatures of corrupting women in moral pamphlets, Clapp was a working-class ally who provided shelter, secrecy, and solidarity. Her punishment, public pillorying and imprisonment, underscored the risks faced by those who dared to protect the persecuted. In their stories, we see the roots of modern LGBTQ+ activism and a refusal to be erased, even when the cost was death. Would you risk your name, your life, to live your truth? Legacy and impact. though the Molly houses of 18th century London were razed or driven underground. Their legacy is woven into the fabric of queer history. These spaces were the blueprints for future sanctuaries, the drag balls of 1920s Harlem, the speakeasies of pre-Stonewall America, and even today's queer nightlife. The mock weddings performed in Molly houses, once acts of satire, now resonate in the global fight for marriage equality. Their coded slang, words like Molly and troll, evolved into the rich lexicon of Polari and modern queer vernacular, a testament to language as a tool of survival. Think about it. Long before pride parades and Instagram hashtags, queer joy found a home in candlelit rooms and whispered code. But the impact runs deeper than cultural echoes. Molly houses demonstrated a radical truth. Community is resistance. In a world that criminalized their existence, these gatherings affirmed that identity could not be legislated away. The raids and executions intended to eradicate deviance only galvanized a subculture that refused to disappear. This pattern repeats throughout history, from the persecution of Oscar Wilde to the AIDS crisis, proving that oppression, no matter how violent, cannot extinguish the need for belonging. What is a community, if not a refusal to disappear? What is resistance, if not choosing joy in a world that demands shame? Today, the spirit of Molly houses lives on in pride parades, LGBTQ+ shelters, and online safe spaces. Their most profound lesson endures. Joy is revolutionary. As we commemorate their struggles, we honor not just their suffering but their brilliance, their unwavering belief that love, in all its forms, deserves light. Before Stonewall, before Pride, there was this: men in wigs and gowns, defying the law not with weapons, but with eyeliner, coded language, and love. And there is more history waiting to be unearthed. So if you have found this glimpse into the forgotten both riveting and revealing, subscribe to our channel and leave a comment. This is the story they tried to bury and the legacy that still burns. The past has plenty more to say, and we are just getting started.